The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
I'm attorney Justin Clark. Coming up just out on You Have Real Estate, we go to northern Florida and the villages. I teach you about commission breadth, and we talk about how important your team is around you when you're buying or selling real estate. It's all just ahead. It's You Have Real Estate.
You Have Real Estate is proudly sponsored by Renewal by Andersen, your full-service window and door replacement company. Learn more at rbafla.com.
Welcome to You Have Real Estate, brought to you by Renewal by Andersen. I am your host, Justin Clark. A wonderful show ahead for you today, but first, the opening statement. Real estate, weird place right now, let's be honest. I feel an overwhelming trend of a market correction a little bit. Now, this is not going to be 2008. This is not going to be a market collapse, but there is a correction. The house values are shrinking a little bit. But right now, you are married and you own real estate with your spouse. But we're thinking about breaking up. We're thinking about getting a divorce. How does a divorce affect your ownership in that real estate? And how can you prepare for that? Great question. A question that we're going to answer by asking real questions. Every weekend here on the program, we ask real questions to the trend-setting people in Central Florida's real estate community. Kick it off today with my good buddy, another attorney. I know two attorneys at the same time. Terrible. Attorney John Marshall. John, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Nice to see you.
So this is an issue. When people get divorced, we own real estate together. How do we deal with that? How do we split it up? But how do we prepare for that in advance?
So when a divorce is imminent, and actually, let's say you filed, it can take a while before it happens.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, one of the things I tell people is we can't do much with the title to the property because how it's titled will remain that way until a divorce is finalized. Nonetheless, for your separate property, Florida is what we call a separate property state. So what you bring into the marriage is yours. What you produce is yours. What you can actually do is establish an estate plan that says anything that's mine, until I'm divorced, I technically cannot disinherit my spouse, but I can tie it up in a trust. We call it a Q-tip trust. And we can tie it up in that trust so that if you died before the divorce is finalized, even though you have to leave assets to spouse may get some benefit off of that, but you're really controlling where the assets are going to go when the spouse dies at a later date.
This is fascinating, actually. And, I'm getting married in January, and Michaela actually, comes from a little bit of money, for sure. And so I imagine in her head, she's thinking, okay, well, or her dad's probably thinking, how do I people are laughing, but it's true. I mean, this is something that people actually think about. How do I make sure that the money that I've worked for all this time that I want to go to my daughter doesn't go to the person that she's going to marry in case of, heaven forbid, it doesn't work out.
So there are several ways we can do it. Like Michaela and I have been talking about prenup.
What, you've been talking about?
No, we have not. So it's in fact the first time they've come in conversation.
Yeah.
No, the thing of it is we can do a prenuptial agreement where the two parties say, this is how we agree that we're going to control the assets that come into the marriage. But if you're a parent and you're leaving assets to a child and you say, I want that child to get it, one of the things that we can do is we can leave those assets to the child in a trust. Now, that trust sets the parameters in terms as to how it can be accessed, when it can be accessed. But one of the benefits of that is the ability to work in some language that allows that trust to be protected from the claims of a spouse in a divorce. And even though the law doesn't necessarily allow all of that to work exactly the way we'd like under Florida law, if we're using a trust and we use things like trust protectors, we even have the choice of changing the venue to maybe a different state that has better protections on that. So again, we always want to draft a trust with the plan in mind, but you want to also have things built into it that allow for change in circumstances, like change in the law, that allows us then to modify the trust even post-death to still accomplish what you want to accomplish.
So I'm watching this show right now, right? And I'm a darn good dad, and I care about my family. I care about my family more than anything in the world, but I'm working hard. I don't have a whole lot of time to sit around and plan for the future because I'm trying to work hard to make sure my family is provided for. but we know at some point we're going to pass away, and who knows what could happen tomorrow, right? Is there a certain amount of money I need to have in the bank to say, you know what, I need to call a John Marshall to make sure everything is covered in case something does, God forbid, happen to me?
Technically, no. One of the things that in my practice, we want to know what your assets are from the standpoint of it helps determine what type of plan we put in place. But quite frankly, if you have a home, even if it's mortgage, you've got equity in the home, there's value there. You've got assets in the bank. I don't care if it's $5,000 or $500,000. There are still assets there. So we do want to plan appropriately. Whether or not we use a will or a trust may be dependent on the type of assets that they are, but we still want to sit down and go through that. And I know there are some attorneys that say, I don't take a client unless they have this much money. Quite frankly, I've been there. I've worked for firms like that. That's not what I like because, quite honestly, to me, everyone needs to have some type of estate plan in place. I'm not going to limit who comes to see me. What I am going to look at is what are their assets and how do we custom tailor it to them in particular.
Life feels like chaos a lot of times for moms and dads out there. And, even with younger kids and you're getting them ready for school, you're trying to work, it feels a little chaotic. How do your clients feel when some of that chaos, knowing that if something, God forbid, happens to them, everything is under control and taken care of? It feels like it alleviates some of that chaos in their minds.
It's funny. I think a lot of people kind of ignore the idea that I'm going to die. And men are really bad about that. Before I was an attorney, I was an insurance agent. If I sold used cars, I've hit the bottom 3 rungs of life, I guess. But the thing of it is, when I would sell life insurance, women understood the need for life insurance. Men, we don't want to admit we're mortal, but we are. And so when we actually stop to think about those things, it can feel chaotic. And I think a lot of men ignore it. A lot of women want to talk about it, but they don't know where to take that conversation. That's where an attorney like myself can come in and say, here's what the law says. Here's what the options are. Here's what you can do. So when you do worry about those things, maybe after you're laying down, you've had a busy day, your head hits the pillow, but your brain is now running full speed because now those are the things that creep in and worry you. Well, we can get rid of that worry. But it does take having a very frank conversation and sitting down and addressing those realities that we just would like to ignore.
Totally agree. John Marshall, always a pleasure to see you, brother. Thanks for doing such a great job for our audience here. And it does take some of that chaos out. When you love your family, you care about your family, you need to make sure that they're taken care of if something does happen to you. You got to call John, and he'll be happy to sit down and talk about these issues with you and get it all straightened out. Quick break. When we return, You Have Real Estate continues. When it comes to windows and doors, there is one place to turn, it's obvious to me. Joined by Dan Brigman, Renewal by Anderson. You guys do such a wonderful job. I love being able to spread your great word out there because you do such a great job for everyone that watches this show. But you're doing something even better for the people at home right now. You got to tell me.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And so what we're doing is, look, it's summertime. Everybody's on vacation. And we said, you know what, let's put all the cards on the table. And so what we're doing is we're doing a buy 2, get 60% off. Here's the caveat, though. It ends on 5/31. So we said, you know what? Anybody who watches this show, guess what? We're going to extend it all the way to the end of July.
Okay, through July. And it is hot. And what people don't understand is the windows are the key to making your electricity bill lower. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So windows are, the way that this works is windows are engineered to have double pane windows, right? And so double pane glass alone doesn't do the job. What does the job is what's inside and what's coated on the glass. So you put argon in the middle and you put low E tinting on the outside. There's a lot of engineering that goes in behind that. There's low grades of both of those. And so you make sure that you engineer that window right, and what happens is that low-E technology reflects the white light. That's what lets the heat in. The argon is the inert gas that keeps the heat from coming from one side to the other.
The best windows in the business and very affordable payment plans to where it's almost making this payment free with the money you're saving on your electricity bill. Check out Renewal by Anderson today. Welcome back to the show. Every week, thanks to Renewal by Anderson, Vivian goes into your neighborhood. Where is she today? Let's say it's a coastal area you've heard of before. Viv, where are you today?
We're going to tour New Smyrna Beach, 17 miles of white sandy beaches and an intercoastal waterway that lends itself to plenty of water sports and waterside dining. This little town is full of shops and restaurants for tourists and locals alike. Even though it's a great tourist spot, it's also a favorite for those seeking a second home for those weekend getaways. What's a beach town without a gift shop? Towels, sunscreen, and commemorative Florida knickknacks are what sells. I'm pretty sure there's one on every block. Between I-95 and I-4, you'll find there's plenty of buildable property and many builders are great. I had a chance to tour a home by Newberry Construction. I was not only impressed by their quality work, but happy to see that shirts are optional when on the job site.
The median household income was about $108,000. The median home value in 2024 was $475,000.
We all know it always comes back to food, so I want to highlight one of my favorites, the garlic. Eclectic but cozy. Authentic Italian flavors keep this restaurant at full capacity. Stop by Big Mike's Burgers on the way home from the beach too. You'll thank me later. Right by the beach, you can access Indian River Lagoon with more than 400 species of birds, dolphins, manatees, and more. Endless hiking, biking, water trails for the avid explorer. If you'd like more information about New Smyrna Beach or for a second home, contact me, Vivian Lehman, at 407-205-0400.
Thank you, Viv. Speaking of Volusia County, we spent a lot of time in New Smyrna Beach recently, mostly because of this guy next to me. When I think construction guys, I don't think svelte, handsome guys like you, by the way. You are not the construction guy that I have vision in my head. Chad Newberry's here. How are you?
I'm great.
Handsome, svelte, everything, right? You were what we don't think of when it comes to construction guys.
I appreciate that.
So anyway, we've talked about Japandi. We've been to Japandi. Give me an update on Japandi.
Yeah, we entered it into the Parade of Homes, which was great. We won actually 2 awards, so it took home the best prize in its category, which was $2 to $2.3 million. But then we also won the best single-family home prize for the whole Parade of Homes. So it was a great night. Actually, I was kind of surprised. We actually took home 399 points out of 400, which was the highest score that the Volusia County Parade of Homes ever had. So great.
This is an all-star type moment.
Yeah, right? It was very, we were tickled pink.
So you were there from when it was just dirt until now seeing the big wins. How does that make you feel as the guy who really came up with this concept and saw it all the way through?
Yeah, I think like being a part of that process was amazing, but I really do have to give a lot of credit to our designer, Bob. He is just such a creative genius, and when he met with the client, he just had a vision right out of the gate that just, I think, blew everyone out of the water, including the client.
Kind of has Frank Lloyd Wright vibes a little bit.
Yeah. So in the Parade of Homes, it was kind of interesting. We'd get people coming in and say, like, this house feels a little Asian, and then to some other people would be like, it has Frank Lloyd Wright vibes to it. And so and I didn't really understand that why we were getting such different feedback from it, if you will. And so I talked to Bob, our designer, and, you know, the clients wanted to marry Scandinavian design because they like the clean lines. And then they loved, you know, and the wife is from Japan. She's Japanese. And so she wanted to incorporate a lot of Japanese architecture. And when Bob listened to them and what they were trying to do, he was like prairie architecture. And I was like, so what the house ended up being was prairie architecture, and Frank Lloyd Wright was a founder of prairie architecture. Oh. But what's fascinating is that Frank Lloyd Wright spent a lot of time in Japan during the first part of his career. So he was fascinated with Japanese art and Japanese architecture. So when he started his school of prairie architecture here in the United States, he carried over a lot of those Japanese influences and incorporated into his architecture, which is why I think the house has like Japanese vibes and Frank Lloyd Wright vibes.
A lot of people at home maybe be thinking about, you know, I do want to build a house from the ground up. I want to design something and build it, but they've just never pulled the trigger on it. It becomes a little bit of a marriage between contractor, designer, and homeowner. How is that relationship, and how have you guys made so many people so happy?
Yeah, I think it really requires a lot of trust. So I always tell people when they're looking at picking a builder, you know, definitely interview a few builders and make sure that you trust them because you're in a pretty long-term relationship for the next year, year and a half, 2 years. So I think that's it. And then also I think the reason why a lot of our clients go with us is because they genuinely want that design build experience combined together. And we provide that, which is not very common, particularly in Volusia County. So I think we kind of get seeked out if someone's looking for that design build experience. And then usually they kind of meet with us a couple of times and they're like, okay, I trust these guys.
Let's talk about that design process because that can be a challenge at the beginning for sure. Because I don't know exactly what I want. I know, like Michaela's over there. I know that she wants something open and airy and sort of white. And I don't necessarily know what I want. How does that design process really go from the beginning?
Yeah. So usually our clients will bring in like a floor plan concept that they kind of like, but they want to tweak it. And then they bring in a lot of inspirational images on the interior and the exterior. And then what we do is we bring our designer in right at that stage and kind of let him take the lead in digesting all of that information. But what our designer, Bob, does is, I mean, he just takes it to another level that I can't even think of. And I think that's why the projects we do are so interesting.
Amazing.
They're awesome, I think.
So, and you have a lot of other projects going on right now as well. Tell me about some of them.
Yeah, so the Dome Home is still moving forward. We're engineering for that. Actually, the same client purchased a house on the river. I would call it a really big house, an estate house, and they asked us to help them remodel it. So we're actually working on 2 projects with one client. And I think the newest project that's coming in our doorway is we actually have a client that bought 15 acres of land out in Pearson, and they want to build a custom home, but they want to build it mostly because they have a family member that's handicapped. And so they want to design the house so that it's handicap friendly or wheelchair friendly. So that's like their real motivator for building a custom home. And I think that just kind of signals to people like it doesn't have to be a big, luxurious, fancy home to do a custom home. It can be for various reasons. And I think that client is a particular reason.
There are a lot of fly-by-night construction companies that pop up all the time. They're like, oh, I've been doing this 100 years, whatever. And they underbid. That's what they do. And they're not transparent from the beginning. How important do you think it is when you first talk to a family who wants to build a house from the ground up? How important is that transparency from the very beginning?
Yeah, I think us being genuine about what the actual cost of building a home is very important on the forefront. We would actually we prefer to come in a little higher than what they anticipate so that they're properly prepared for it, as opposed to coming in under and then, change ordering them to death. We just don't think that that's a good practice.
I think your transparency is what has kept you successful and kept you in the business and keeping all of your clients happy, because it is a marriage. I mean, when you're talking about 6, 9, 12, 18 months together with a family going through what is a challenging time building a house, because there's so many decisions to make, and they're still happy with you at the end. And hiring you again for other projects, that means you're doing something very good. Dad, good to see you. Tell Dad I said hello.
All right.
I'm not going to tell you what he's doing today. Just flying today. A quick break. You Have Real Estate continues.
Can you believe we're planning a wedding?
I mean, I'm excited about it. It's a lot. Guest list, cake tastings, figuring out what we're going to have for dinner. Is it chicken, fish, one of the above? The vegetarian options. AC units.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of new AC units, new season of life might mean it's time for a new air conditioning unit. And with Duquesne, they actually just came out with this new refrigerant, which is actually more efficient.
Getting married is a little bit complicated, actually. But I got to tell you, the AC and making sure that the family here is comfortable, not as complicated as a wedding, that's for sure.
No, and with Duquesne, it's not just about reliable products. It's knowing that you can really trust your system, just like a good marriage built on trust.
Well, I think trust is very important, especially here in Florida. Trusting your AC unit is incredibly important because you walk into a house, it's 100-something degrees outside. You want to make sure that your AC unit is working perfectly so you're comfortable inside.
Yeah, so definitely do your homework, because Duquesne has that new AC unit, really just kind of something more efficient, something more user-friendly, and the new coolant, man, that's a game changer.
And do you want to have an outdoor wedding this time of year?
No, it's so hot. I mean, and one of the best things about it being hot in Florida is we can fall in love with our home again, because we have the new AC unit.
Just like I fell in love with you. And now we're getting married.
I know.
And quite frankly, we should have the wedding inside here at our house.
Because it's nice and
Because
cool.
it feels great in here.
Yes, well, thanks, Duquesne. We definitely love you, and we love our home, and now that it's cool, and I love you too.
Sometimes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. A lot of the time, let's say.
Yeah. Well, do yourself a favor and look no further than Duquesne.
Welcome back. There are two little girls right now riding horses, and their names are Sophia and Mila Clark, my daughters, all right? They're up at WEC, which is in Ocala, and good luck, Sophia. And Mila, might want to start the clock too, Derek, just so you know. So, like, we can't all be perfect every time, right? Best of luck to you. But I was looking at renting. Elisha Lopez is here as well. I was looking at renting on Airbnb and that, I used to say VRBO, but I think it's Verbo, they say on the commercials. Wow. What an unbelievable investment opportunity. It is difficult to rent properties in Ocala because of what WEC is doing. What a great investment opportunity for people.
It really is. And so a year, 12 months ago, even 6 months ago, I had a lot of sellers just ready to unload them and sell them because that market, they weren't getting rented out. And then boom, just like that, the last couple of weeks, I mean, they're not really any available. And the closer you are to the World Equestrian Center, the least chances you are to find something available.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like when you're trying to invest in real estate, and by the way, the market's crazy right now. Everything is insane, but I think investing in real estate is such a safe bet. But you start thinking about, okay, so investing in real estate, am I looking at the rental history? Can I Airbnb it? Can I flip it? What am I really looking for a great investment property?
So as an investor, they always look at their bottom line, how they can maximize getting the most, not just monthly, but in the long run. And then with an Airbnb, there's so many important factors to make it successful. So it's not just the location and, the amount that the rate that's charged nightly. It's also a great cleaning crew and just having systems in place that everything just moves smoothly. Because even renting an Airbnb when we've been away, if you get stuck in those little tedious things, then you don't get good reviews and then you don't make money.
How important do you think it is having a great broker or real estate agent by your side especially if you're a younger investor where you haven't bought 100 properties? How important is that relationship?
It's one of the most important relationships in the whole process because we're the eyes and ears. We're the expert of the market. And even if someone's we've lived in the same area and I'm working in the same area, they've lived there, let's say 20 years, but they haven't dive into that piece of the market, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to even say this or not because I want to keep Ocala sort of protected in some ways. But a lot of Orlando investors, I think, are now starting to understand that there's such a great investment opportunity the further you go north in Florida. And again, I don't know if you want to tell them about this or not, but it is such a great place to invest because again, the same exact house, if you put it in Orlando versus in Marion County somewhere or Levy County to the left, it's half the price.
It really is. It's still 43% less. And, I don't know if you heard the news, but they're opening a sports complex in Marion County. So they want to things major sports teams, things like that. So within the next 5 years, we're not going to be having the same conversation. And so many investors are going to be kicking themselves in the because they didn't jump.
Yeah, I think now is such a great time to invest in the northern Florida area. But we talk about Marion County and Ocala too. But I love Levy County as well. It might be one of those things where you got to sit on it for a while, but what a great opportunity right now.
It really is. And especially with vacant land, I mean, there's no maintenance other than the annual taxes. And you're always going to be spending less on vacant land on taxes than you are with a dwelling on it because it's just the land. So
I love it. I will see you very soon because I'm going to head up after the show to see my daughters ride. Thank you, Elisha. Thank you to all of our amazing guests today and our awesome crew, as always. Most importantly, thank you. See you again next week for more You Have Real Estate.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.